Well, hello there again, friends. Welcome back to the garage. Grab your cup of coffee because I'm Paulie, and this is Paulie's Power Hour. So today is going to be a fun day because we are going to do some painting. Painting can be a lot of fun. It's also can be very strenuous. This is a front bumper for a 2014 Toyota Corolla. I always call it a Camry, but it's a Corolla. I always get the two mixed up for some reason. So yeah, this is for my sister-in-law's car. The front of hers is a little banged up, so I figure we can fix this, and we could do this right here in the driveway. This is going to be no big deal. All right, so here's what I did. I went to my local paint supply store with the paint code, and I'll show you where to get the paint code on your vehicle. Right. So here's what I got. I got some strainers and some mixing cups because I'm going to need to mix the clear. This is a base coat clear coat system. I've got some primer. This is ready to spray. I did not get filler primer, or what we call 2K primer, because that's brand new. There's not a whole lot of imperfections to fill. So I'm going to sand it, hit it with the primer, and we're going to see how it looks. But there shouldn't be a need for filler primer. Some stirring sticks, because stirred paint is happy paint. An adhesion promoter. You use this for plastic parts and vinyl parts to make sure that it helps the paint and the primer stick to the part. Then I got the paint. Now this is a quart and a half, or a pint and a half, sorry. This is a pint and a half, and this is already ready to spray. So this should be more than enough to do that bumper, probably 3 coats of paint, easily, right? Ready to paint. It's got the reducer and everything in it, so you got to kind of paint it fast. Here's the first part of the clear. The partner for the clear, and a scuffing pad. Alright, so why a scuffing pad? Because a scuffing pad equates to about 360 grit sandpaper. And with this being plastic, you don't want to gall and put scratches in this. So you want to keep as fine a grit as you can. Like, you're just trying to agitate. Like, see this right here? If you can see that little bit of imperfection, you're just trying to get that out of the finish, right? And yeah, you're just trying to give a mechanical tooth like this. I'm probably gonna have to fix with some putty after the first coat of primer. But yeah, so you're just trying to give it a mechanical tooth to grab onto. Okay, so without further ado, let's just start sanding. Alright, so you can see I've changed the orientation of the bumper. I'm going to finish sanding it here in a second. I did this to make sure that I can paint the bottom of it, because this lip is exposed, so you're going to be able to see it. So, back to sanding. Now you do want to use some wax and grease remover to get your fingerprints off of this, because your fingerprints are greasy, and greasy fingerprints do not mix with paint. we're ready to finally hit the adhesion promoter on here, and I'll show you what we're going to do. Alright, so here we are. All said and done, the adhesion promoter is drying. Now what you saw, so I started spraying in all this area right here, right? And then I did here, right? And then I started blasting this way. And that's probably how I'm going to end up when I paint this thing. Yeah, that's probably how that's going to end up happening. Just because I want to make sure I get in all these little pukas, and where the vents, and like there's a huge plastic grill that goes right here, which you'll see when we put the bumper on the car. So yeah, but not bad, fun. So I'm going to mix up the primer now. You got to spray this stuff pretty quickly. Stirring stick. Fortunately, I've been shaking this for a while, and there's not a whole lot of chunky stuff in here, which is good. Plus, like I said, this isn't filler primer. This is just regular primer. Alright, so here we are, 3 coats of primer later. And I think it looks pretty good. There's some things I gotta fix, like this right here, once this is fully cured. And then, admittedly, I did go a little heavy right here, and you can see I have a little bit of a gravity indicator. But once this is cured, a little bit of 320, this will sand right out, it'll be perfectly smooth. And then I'll be able to start laying color on it. But all in all, it turned out pretty good, I think. This is going to look nice when it's on the car. And I'm doing this in the driveway. So now gun care is very important. When I say gun care, I mean you're painting guns, of course. So first let's start with this filter that I used, right? If you look in here, you can see that I did catch some particulates. Those particulates would have made it into my gun and would have gummed up my my spray tip, and that's not good. So what I like to do is take a little bit of paint thinner and I pour it in here. Slosh it around. And I'll grab an old paint cup and I'll start spraying. And you'll see, right, it looks like primer. And it's going to, because it's taking all the stuff out of the hopper. Take a paper towel. And I'll kind of dip it in and I'll wipe it all around the inside of the hopper. All the primer residue off the sides. So we don't cross-pollinate, cross-contaminate. And I'll take this and I'll pour this into this paint cup. This will be disposed of later. I'll take some fresh primer, or fresh thinner. Put some fresh thinner in here. Pull the trigger, and now you'll see it's coming out clear. Spray it a little bit. Make sure all the passages are clear. I cleared the nozzle. So now what I like to do is I like to take my tip off. Alright, so you see how this tip works, right? There's all these little pukas in here. So I take my tip and drop it in the hopper. Fill it up with some thinner. The gun is ready for another day of painting. So here's my gravity indicator after I've been sanding on it a little bit. So what I'm using some 320 grit sandpaper because this is not 2K filler primer. This is not that thick. So I don't want to use anything more aggressive. All I'm doing is knocking this little run out of it, smoothing this out a little bit. I do have about 3 coats on here, so that should be enough for me to just scuff down, make it smooth, and get it rolling. So you want to use, I'm using this kind of soft, it's not like a hard block, but it's got enough, it makes enough support. You don't want to use your hand, because your hand, right, it does this, right, and then you'll sand, especially on when you're doing like 2K primer, and you're working with a bunch of coats, and you're trying to like put this crisp line in here and all this other stuff, you know, especially up here. You know, your hand, as you're sanding, you will actually put ripples in the paint, and if you're painting it a dark color, that's not good. As soon as you paint it a dark color, it's going to show, and it's going to look like the surface of the ocean. That's no good. So I'm going to keep sanding on this a little bit, and hopefully the weather holds out, because it's starting to look like booty cheeks. And we'll be hitting some color and then some clear on here. All right, so I went through and I kissed it all with some 320 grit sandpaper to give myself a nice level surface, knock down any little bit of orange peel that I might have had in here. But as you can see, this is all nice and smooth where my gravity indicator was. All right, this is gonna look pretty good when it's done. So here's all my little sandpaper. The one thing you don't want to do is be cheap when you're doing this part. So now what I like to do is, just like I used that pre-painting stuff to get all the fingerprints and stuff off of here, I mix this up. It's 80% water and 20%, 91% isopropyl alcohol. And I will wipe down the entire bumper with this, let it dry, and while it's drying, I'll be loading up the gun, getting the gun ready, setting my pressures, and we'll talk about pressures and fans and everything once I get a coat of paint on here. So let's rock. All right, so this is where we're going to end this video for the week. Tune in next week. We're going to lay down some color, we're going to lay down some clear, we're going to talk about some paint gun tips, paint gun setup, controls, air pressures, all that good stuff. And you're going to see the finished product. Spoiler alert, I think it turned out pretty good for doing it in the driveway with no paint booth or anything. That being said, you know, we're still in this coronavirus thing we got going on. I am considered essential personnel because I'm active duty Navy, so I am still working. But if you don't have to, you know, whatever, do what you can to you know, stay safe. If you're a first responder, God bless you, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing what you do. Medical personnel, you know, everything, that we keep this machine going and we try to keep as many people safe as we can. So yeah, don't worry, the conclusion to the Corvette is coming soon. This whole coronavirus thing kind of put a kibosh on that for a little bit. So yeah, I promise you that's coming soon. As far as everything else, oh, I did get a electric line lock for the Malibu, which means we're going to be doing burnouts soon. And yeah, so, you know, like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, do all that stuff that helps the channel out. I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy the content. I guess that's it for this week. So you guys keep it between the ditches and come back and see.